Hey, this is Gina Grad.
Hi, this is Teresa Strasser.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Errico.
Hey there. This is Casey Cavalier.
I'm Rocky Rose.
And you are listening to the Jay Franze Show.
Lucky you.
Welcome to the Jay Franze Show. A behind-the-curtain look at the entertainment industry with insights you can't pay for and stories you've never heard. Now, here's your host, Jay Franze.
Well, hello and welcome to the show. I am Jay Franze, and if you are new here, this is where we take a deep dive into the entertainment industry to provide you with valuable insights and entertaining stories. This week, we get to talk with a drummer and a guitar tech. We get to talk with Chris Franz. We'll talk to him about how he got his start in the industry, life on the road, and we'll take a deep dive into his time with the Steve Miller Band. Now, I've known Chris for some time now, and I can't wait to catch up with him tonight. So if you'd like to join in, comment, or fire off any questions, please head over to jayfranze.com. Now let's get started. So, sir, it's good to have you here. I am very excited for tonight. I'd like to just jump right in and find out how you got your start.
Well, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Started playing in fourth grade. I had a band in fourth grade. Fifth grade, we were out jamming around at the high school dances. And
so that's an early start.
Yeah. So that was like fifth grade. And then I decided I want to play drums. So I played drums all through high school. In high school, I started playing around Baltimore with local bands. I ended up playing with some guys that were in their mid-20s and 30s from the big rock bands around town that started playing disco music in I'm going to date myself here, but this was like the late 70s. So I started up playing. Let me back up. I called the agency and I said, hey, I want to play drums with some bands. And the guy goes, oh, hold on a minute. He put this guy on the phone. He said, meet us at this rehearsal place. And so I get over there and they look at me and go, man, you're just a kid. So I think I was 11th grade right there. But I was playing with the keyboard player from a band called Judds, the bass player from a band called Orange Wedge. The guitar player was with a band called Joshua, and the lead singer was with a band called Coyote. And this was all the big rock bands around Baltimore area. So that's where I got my start in music. At that point, I really wasn't a sound guy or anything, so I was just a drummer, and I thought that was the coolest thing. So I just played drums.
That's awesome. I love it. You say you were just a drummer. Being just a drummer is an entire career for most people, but you have a multifaceted career. I'm impressed by it. How long were you playing in these? I mean, I know you're still playing, but how long were you playing in these bands before you moved to Nashville?
Let's see. So a couple years of that around Baltimore. It's like I'm making money in 12th grade. I've got my own cars and I got an apartment. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to do this. This is all I want to do. So first I ended up going to Ocean City, Maryland, and I hooked up with a bunch of people there. We're moving to Fort Lauderdale. So I load up everything in my little Green Hornet station wagon.
I remember those.
Yeah, because I had to have a station wagon or something that could carry drums. So that's what I had. So I load up and I go down to Fort Lauderdale, and real quick I find out you got to have a lot of money to hang out in Fort Lauderdale to get in the music business. And here I am, like 19 years old. So I decide I'm gonna go back home. So I leave Fort Lauderdale, but on the way up, I stop in Orlando and I hook up with this band at their big show band. They're like a 9-piece horn band. So I go up there and, they're doing Chicago and they're doing funk music and a bunch of horn bands, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. So I auditioned for this band and I end up, okay, well, they have a manager and they're going to, okay, you got a place to stay here and we're going to put this band on the road. So that led to a whole nother chapter of more bands because the manager, he had a bunch of bands he was putting together with an agency. Babe Balagambo was the agency down there. And they had a lot of clubs, Fox's Dance. This is all over Florida. and really cool clubs, show bands doing, like the floor show, which was, you don't see that much anymore unless you go out to Vegas or something.
It's funny to me because he just mentioned like, oh, I went here and I did this, and then I went here and I did that. I mean, these are moves that most people wish they could be doing, and they're just happening to you. So,
yeah.
I mean, go ahead and tell me what did come next.
Well, it was funny. Saying was home is where the luggage is, because I really didn't have a car or a home anymore because I was on the road. And, we were traveling with the band, and we play clubs, and you'd stay in a hotel. And back in those days, there was like the Holiday Inns, the Sheratons, every exit just about had a club in one of the hotels. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember that kind of thing, but the Holiday Inns had a band. There was bands everywhere. And then you can kind of make a comfortable living if you were with the right people back then. So that's what I was doing. I ended up with a band called New York, which was a really cool band. And I got to give props to Iggy Constantino, because he was the guy that really had the business end of this band down. And he booked that band all year. I mean, it was booked forever.
Did he just book it, or did he play in it as well?
So he played in the band. He was the guitar player. He owned the PA, the truck, a decent little light show.
Usually the job of the bass player, but we'll let him do it.
So I ended up playing drums in that band. This is where I also met my wife. So it was about 4 years, I think, 3 or 4 years with that band. We were in Myrtle Beach all the time. We were playing Holiday Inn downtown for 3 weeks. We were playing North for a couple of weeks. We were playing Winston-Salem or somewhere else for a couple of weeks. Then we'd come back to Myrtle Beach. So it was basically home. When it was time to join another band, I drove from Myrtle Beach to Fort Myers Beach to join a band of people that I'd never met before. Okay. But in that band, I met a guitar player and a bass player that ended up becoming really great friends of mine. We started a band out of that. That band kind of fizzled after we started it, and was like, we could tell that the three of us really needed to go do something else away from this other half of the band, because we were clicking and that really wasn't. So we went and we started this band called Why on Earth. This is kind of where I started getting into knowing about sounds. This band actually was a really great band. We were, the guitar player who's passed away several years ago, his name was Scott Cogan, was an amazing guitar player. And the other players in the band were very talented as well. But Scott, he was really one of those guys that I think that would have been his heyday, his thing. So we rented this giant PA system from a Baltimore company, and it wouldn't work right. So me and Scott would stay in the club after the show. The first week or so, we had the PA. And that's where we kind of figured out how to learn how to do PA. So I became a sound man kind of quick.
You have any challenges with that?
Oh, lots of challenges. We hired a couple sound guys, and they could tell you frequencies and compression ratios and blah 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 blah. But man, they couldn't make it sound good. Just didn't thump. It wasn't working. So, long story short, we kind of finally got a guy, and then we moved on, and the band got good. We were on the same circuit with like Jackal and Firehouse, but those guys all got signed, and we didn't.
Well, that happens.
At the end of the week, we'd have some money, and we'd give it all just to the sound guy, the light guy. We had 100 lights, we had truck, lights. So all the money was going to production. And here's your $30. Here's your $30. And Scott, you got to, you owe this much money for a bar tab.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah. So then we moved on from that. I guess I ended up here in Nashville. This is kind of where we're getting to the
nitty gritty.
To the nitty gritty.
So you end up in Nashville. Do you start off playing live, or do you start off trying to get studio work?
Well, I moved here with Scott, that guitar player from Myrtle Beach. He moved here with me with a lead singer, and we were doing like Cinderella and White Snake and stuff like that. And all we needed was a bass player. here we're coming around to the bass player again. But we couldn't find a bass player that didn't want us to pay him to practice. Nashville.
Yeah, sounds like Nashville.
The singer goes, I'm going to go on home. You guys call me when you get together. I'm going to have to go do something else. We're going to have to start working. So he kind of split, went back to Myrtle Beach, and I hooked up with a road band again out of Nashville. Ended up doing cruise ships.
Hey,
Nassau, here we come, back and forth for the next 13 weeks or something, right?
So what was it like playing on a cruise ship before you continue?
Well, it was an interesting experience. We were back and forth to Nassau twice a week from Cocoa Beach.
Yeah.
It was on Disney Cruise Lines.
So you play for a couple hours a night, or did you have multiple shows?
When they put the passengers on the ship the first day, you have to go do lifeboat drill. So you had to dress up and tell people where to go. So you had to basically, you're part of the crew.
That's awesome.
So I'm meeting everybody. Oh yeah, man, you got to come on down and see the band tonight. We'll be rocking. Come on down. So we had people coming in, and it was great. It was a good experience. I'm glad I did it. It was fun. If anybody's looking to learn how to polish their craft, that's a good place to do it.
Well, very cool. So what happens after that when you get back to Nashville?
So when I get back to Nashville here, I hooked up with this guy, and he had a bunch of clubs that he was doing sound for. And he said, hey, I need a sound guy. So he started hiring me to do sound. And of course, it's analog systems back then. And I kind of knew something about it, and I could mix. So I started doing sound with him. Eventually, I started doing sound around all the other clubs. And one of the clubs had national acts coming through. So I'd end up on monitors for that. Sometimes I'd be out front of house for that. And from that, I met a guy that said, hey, I need a sound guy for a little road gig. So I started getting some road work as a sound engineer. And I go, wow, this is kind of cool. So I got some work doing some sound, and other sound companies started to hire me to do sound. And this is how I got into being a sound engineer.
It's what I love about Nashville is that you could be a drummer, but if you're out networking, you're meeting people. Yeah. And you always get offered other gigs. I mean, it's all related. It's all within the music industry. But you're always offered something else outside of your realm of expertise, and they still give it to you. It's like, hey, you're a nice guy. Why don't you come out here and do this with us? Yeah. So when you do that, and you get taken out on the road as a sound engineer, it's got to be a world of difference from sitting behind a drum kit. How'd that go for you?
Oh, it was pretty good. But they never said, hey, can you drive the bus? I have driven the band trucks before and stuff like that.
I know, again, you're a skilled drummer and you end up becoming a guitar tech. So I want to talk about that here in a few minutes. But before we leave this subject, can you tell me what it was like the first time you sat in the studio as a drummer?
Well, let's see. I hooked up with this guy that had a band. We were playing clubs, and he was going in the studio. So I thought this was really cool. And everything went good. We went in there, we played the songs, and we had a blast. And what I know now about being in the studio and then is a lot different. I came off the road from doing the band thing, and I owned a box truck. And I got approached by a guy that had a cartage company. He said, hey, you want to be part of my cartage company? And I'm like, well, can I make money at that? And was like, yeah. I started doing cartage, and I started seeing like Nashville session drummers, Eddie Bears, and Paul Lime, and
amazing
Greg
guys.
Morrow. I mean, I can go through the list of all of them. I don't want to be a name dropper.
No, but those three are amazing.
Yeah. JT Cornfloss, the guitar player, a few years ago passed away. He was an amazing guitar player. If you want to look him up, JT Cornfloss, he's just on everything. And he was just an amazing player. So I ended up doing his cartage and a couple other guys. So every time I drop his stuff off, I'd hang out there and I'd watch these other guys. And I'd also be watching the engineers because
you have to be well-rounded to make a living in this business.
Yeah, these guys will listen to a song one time and then go in there and play it, and you think that they've worked on it for a month. Studio guys are really amazing. They're fast. They're accurate. They're just gifted. All of them. They're gifted.
Give props. So how does that transition to now becoming a guitar tech?
Okay. All right. So let's see. So I'm doing sound and I'm doing monitors. I went out with a couple national acts monitors and a couple national acts as, or, big country act guys as front of house.
And before you go, which acts were those?
Well, I did monitors for Thompson Square when they had that Are You Gonna Kiss Me or Not debut. Jesse Cook is a flamenco guitarist. I think he was probably one of my first real taste of good road kind of work. That's like, I can make this kind of money doing that. That's pretty cool. It went from I played drums with Brenda Lee at the Wisconsin State Fair, took a red eye to go be the sound guy for Jesse Cook at Brit Fest in Oregon. Got there like 1 in the afternoon.
That is insane.
And saw a console that I'd never seen before. It was a Soundcraft VI6, which was brand new at the time. So I figured that out real quick and did a great show. Actually, they Front of House Online actually has an article on that because they contacted me to do an interview. And I said, you sure you got the right guy? Because there's guys that are really, no, you mixed that show. That was a premiere show. He says, so we really want to interview you.
When you talk about, I can't let it pass by, when you talk about showing up for a show, especially when you're showing up late in the day, and yes, 1 o'clock in the afternoon is late in the day when you're putting together a show. So when you're showing up for this show and you get in front of a console that you've never seen before, that would be my biggest fear being a studio guy, to go into a situation where I see a console that I'm not familiar with. How do you handle something like that?
Well, it was Reyes Sound, and the guy was right there. He was showing me everything. So I was like, oh, it was so easy. It was like I touched the screen and the EQ would pop up. I go, oh, it's kick drum. So I make what I think looks like a cool kick drum EQ. And I go to the next one for the snare, and I go hi-hat, and I go, toms. Oh, wait, let me put some little gates and, go back here, do a little. So I guessed everything pretty much. And he, we made adjustments. And so we went on, and it was pretty amazing.
So it was a digital console, obviously.
Digital console, great boards. I mean, and then everything just came right up. Of course, we had an hour sound check or something like that. So
that's not bad. So you get an hour to experiment.
Hour to learn the board. So I said to the guy, where's the reverb? Where's the effects? Okay, I want some reverb here. I said, okay, so this is where I'm going to have it. This is where I want it. This was quite a while back. I don't know if I do anything different than I did that. And I have a really cool board mix I'll share with you sometime.
Nice.
They said it was one of the premiere shows of the concert season. So
when you're there, you had you mentioned having somebody from the company there to assist you with the technology. Yeah. Were they there for the entire evening?
Yes, he was right there making sure I didn't go over a certain amount of dB level out there at front of house. So, but it was really cool. And then we've played there since, and I've seen them, and we talked about it, laughed about it.
That is pretty cool. I wouldn't expect the company to provide you with somebody there, but it does make sense that, you're working on a console you've never seen before, you're going to have questions.
Yeah, well, when you advance a show or whatever, they're out there. They had the guy that brings in the PA. Everywhere you go now, that's what the production guy does, is advances the show. At the time, PM5D, I think, was the mixing console everybody was using. Or an M7, so those things would show up, and it was like, okay, I'm kind of familiar with all that, and I could learn it pretty quick and figure it out. Let's see, after that, I had a guy that was putting me on gigs with like Mark Wills. I worked with him several times. Mark is a amazing artist, a great singer, great guitar player. He plays drums great. I think he does everything great. So he's easy. The band, good in, good out. You know what I'm saying? If it's good coming in, it's really good to make it sound great.
Well, that's the key right there, is capture good signal and good performances, and you get a good output. But if you're capturing crap, you're going to end up with crap.
That's right. Yeah. Let's see. I was doing some work with George Thurgood's guy. Really have them to thank for everything, because there's a guy there. His name's Jeff Pitt. He's one of the really great production guys in Nashville. And he helped me get into doing other things. So I started like going out to his warehouse, and I'd be doing warehouse tour prep work. So we started doing tour prepping, and we, making looms and doing stuff, and, learning how to really just be accurate of all of your small little things. The little things in this business are what take a show down.
I know that to be 100% true. So
Yeah.
what are some scary moments you've experienced while you're out there?
Fortunate for us, I mean, when I got in with the Steve Miller Band, those guys, they really think about, okay, what could go wrong, and let's make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Let's take a deeper look into your time with the Steve Miller Band. You go out on the road, you're a guitar tech.
Mm-hmm.
Can you start by just telling us what your day is like?
Okay, well, let's see. Normally we will show up at the venue at about 8:30.
8:30 a.m.
Yeah, 8:30 a.m.
Okay.
If it's a big show, there'll be somebody out there earlier that would have already chalked the stage and done some of the rigor points and got the PA ready to fly. And the audio company may have gotten there the day before, the night before. We did Journey. Let's see, it was Tower Power open. Steve Miller was in the middle, and then Journey. That was the biggest show that I was involved in, the biggest tour.
Nice.
And I don't know how many trucks there was. It was
Well, Journey alone had what, 7?
I don't know. It was a lot. So you'd be, so we'd get in there about 11 o'clock. That day somebody's already working 5 o'clock in the morning, and by the time we got there, it's Journey's all ready to do their line check, and then we bring our stuff in. We were pretty quick to get in and out. That's how we designed our racks and everything. So we could really just multi-cable, boom, 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 roll them in, roll them out. And then that's the key to that. And we could get out of there in 15 minutes after the show.
Roll it back just a little bit and go through your day.
Okay.
I'm really interested in what the day is like for you on the road.
Okay, so what I do is I'll stand there, and when I first got with them, I was in the truck. So I was basically unstrapping stuff and rolling it off the truck. And then the local hands would unstack it. And they would direct it to the right location on the stage. Every case should be marked, but sometimes they're not. But mostly they're marked. So they roll their cases to wherever they need to go. And then each person has a job in that location. Monitors, so Monitor Worlds. Nowadays, I set up on the stage left near Monitor World, so I'll be over there and I'll get my cases, and the first thing I do is start setting up my Guitar World. And somebody else is doing their stuff, so it's not like we all have everything to do. Everybody's got their location, their assignments. And I'll start by getting my guitars out. First, I'll set up my world, get everything ready. Then I'll start looking at my guitars. I usually start with the Stratocasters because I like those. So I'll look at those and I'll change the strings.
Do you change them every night?
And yeah, we change the strings every day. I got like 8 guitars I change strings on.
Really? How long does it take you to change the strings on a guitar? Because it takes me forever.
I don't know, 5 minutes. I got a drill, I'll undo them all, cut them off, boom, 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 thread them through and go through. But, after you get them on there again, you tune them up and you play them a little bit and check and see how the neck's, the neck changes with temperature and humidity. How did they travel in the truck? Was it rough? There's all kinds of things. All the electronics working, I got to play them and check it out. And
so while you're talking about that, a lot of people say don't take all the strings off at the same time.
I hear them say that. Yeah. In all the years I've been doing this, I changed to 12 string once, one string at a time.
That would be a beast.
Yeah. Les Paul, we have Les Paul that, I just change them. It's okay, because I like to clean the neck off after I get the strings off.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, I only ask you because I have a few guitars laying around the house, and strings hardly ever get changed. However, when they do, I try to do things one string at a time, only because that's what I was told.
I guess if I was doing a tension guitar, say something like a Charvel Jackson or a Ibanez, something with a Kaler system, I would definitely do one at a time. It's just a very delicate balance of tension, string versus springs.
What are the main responsibilities you have as a guitar tech? I know you're setting up the Guitar World.
Yeah.
When you say setting up your world, what does that actually mean?
Well, I got 2 guitar vaults. So I get them set up. I put up my my tuners. I get my tuners all working. I've got a box, for making my adjustments, and I have to do pedal boards, run some cabling out there, go check the amplifiers. So I have 2 Dr. Z Stingrays. That's my responsibility. The looms going back and forth, and I have a bass pedal board over by the drums that I have to take care of. A couple bass guitars.
How long does it take you to get it all set up before a show?
I think we showed up one time, and I think we had to get ready really quick, and I think we were ready in 2 hours.
Okay, it's not bad.
Yeah.
I've seen you in action. I've seen you in action both playing drums as well as a guitar tech, and you play that world like it's an instrument. So, I mean, you set up the world, you get your, like you said, the vaults that you have surrounding you, and the area you get to work in is not that large.
Sometimes, yeah.
So you get all that stuff set up, and you're constantly working with the guy on stage to transition from one guitar to another, which seems like every song.
Yeah, you were there that night.
Is that normal?
Well, Steve doesn't look at the list and go, let's see, Jacob has the Strat on. Let's let him play that for 4 songs. And then let's put 2 songs he could play the acoustic on. So that's not the way it works. It's just like, okay, it's this way. I have a Strat for this song. I have a Strat that's tuned for this song. I have a guitar that's tuned for Jungle Love's different. I have a guitar that's tuned for the blues, some of the blues songs. They stay in that tuning. It's not like I have to get a guitar back and change the tuning.
So you're switching guitars based on tuning, not based on preference.
Tuning and like the Les Paul versus the Stratocaster. I'll use the Les Paul needs to be played on different stuff. But yeah, a lot of it's tuning, a lot of it's character. Les Paul is a different character than the Stratocaster.
I'm surprised Steve plays anything other than a Les Paul.
Les Paul was his godfather, as everybody knows. So, and Les Paul never gave him a Les Paul, so Steve had to get his own.
Well, I don't think everybody does know that. It's still pretty good information. You can't grow up with a better godfather than that when you're talking about this industry.
Yeah.
So when you first started when you first go out on the road with the Steve Miller Band, were you nervous at all?
Well, I have to look back at that. I started the same day the monitor guy did. He's one of my better friends right now. And I mean, we looked at each other and we're like, oh, man, I don't know, man.
I don't know what's going to happen here.
What's going to happen here? So I think everything worked out okay. And I tried hard, and I keep trying as hard as I can to do the best I can. That was 2012 was when I started that gig. So that's been a good run, and I hope I keep going with it. But yeah, I think I was nervous, but I didn't show it. We played a private event, was our first job. I've learned a lot since then, and I say every day is a school day because I want to get better at everything.
Sure. No, that would make perfect sense. I mean, how long did it take before you started feeling comfortable enough not to be nervous?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think I still get a little nervous every time until I hear the first note go down.
Okay. Now, when you play some of these bigger shows, like when you're out on the road with Journey and stuff, is that a more heightened bit of nervousness to you?
At first, I think it was a little bit of a little shocking. It's like, wow, this is it's going to be different. We're not headlining. We're in the middle here. But the cool thing about that was David Garibaldi was playing drums for the last half hour before I was playing things. So I got to watch him like 39 times play Soul Vaccination. What is hip? And everything, so yeah. That's kind of cool.
It is. It's very cool. I mean, all these things are very cool, right? I mean, It's just an experience all within itself. I'm trying to picture, because I've gone on the road a few times as an engineer, not for long periods, just little stints here and there. But I've never had that full tour experience. When you're out on the road and you're touring, how close do you get with the band?
Well, I know the guys pretty good. They're the first couple of years. I think I made a point not to really get involved in knowing anybody and just be doing my job. And I think it was like 5 or 6 years Steve didn't know my name, which was great. And then one day I'm out on stage rolling up cables, getting ready for the opening act was going to come up and set up. So I roll up my cables and take my board off the stage. I'm rolling my stuff up, and Steve goes, "Hey, Chris, what time's the show tonight?" And I stopped in my tracks.
You know my name.
He knows my name.
That's funny. But now that he does know your name, now it's a heightened sense of awareness, right?
Well, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Now I kind of like, we're kind of cordial to say, hey, how's it going? What's up? Stuff like that.
Sure.
So, same with all the guys in the band. We're kind of all been there long enough. And
well, you got some amazing players in that band too. And what's it? Joseph Wooten on keyboards.
Joseph Wooten on
He's a
keyboards.
monster, isn't he?
Yeah. Great guy, great singer, great musician.
I've seen him play with his brothers over at 3rd and Lindsley quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
So to get to see him play as part of the Steve Miller Band, that was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. If anybody listening to this podcast gets a chance to go see the Wooten Brothers, go see the Wooten Brothers, or just go see one of them.
Yeah, go see a brother. Are they still playing on Wednesday nights at 3rd and Lindsley?
I don't know if they are. I don't think they are. But I think that Victor's out doing stuff.
Victor's usually out with Bella Flag.
They're actually doing the Wooten Brothers touring.
Oh,
now.
really?
So they're out doing it all by themselves. And they're amazing because they just do stuff because they grew up, 4 years old, 3 years old, however they started playing. So there's magic.
Reggie, being the older brother, taught the rest how to play. And
he's the teacher.
Yeah. I actually took lessons for a couple of years. It was pretty fun.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I still can't play, so I don't know if he's not a very good teacher or if he's not a very good student. I mean, I'm going to guess I'm not
practice.
a good student because the rest of his students are off doing amazing things.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's practice, Jay. I think you just have to practice. Yeah, if you got a guitar there, man, and you got it in your hands 5 hours a day, an hour a day, every day. I mean, just play. That's another thing. I didn't know a lot about the guitar when I took the gig, being the guitar tech. I knew how to tune a guitar and how to set stuff up and stuff like that. But I don't know how to play the guitar. But after playing it every day for 12 years, I'm starting to figure some things out.
Starting to learn some stuff.
But then again, like I said at the beginning, I'm still not a guitar player, and I wouldn't say, hey, man, let me sit in.
I saw a picture of you playing drums with Steve. I mean, how often does that happen?
Well, there's a story to that, and this is an anniversary of that. That happened 2019.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
We're on tour.
Yeah.
We're on tour with Marty Stewart. I'm up at sound check. We were up on the stage. Well, during sound check, I put all Jacob's guitar in one of those boats that hold about 8 guitars and roll it up on stage so he can sound check each guitar, and I can hand him guitars when Steve says, let's play this song while we're in rehearsal mode during the day. And I had all my guitars up on stage, and the band bus pulls up, and an ambulance pulls up next to the band bus. So we're like, well, what's going on over here? So tour manager comes over and says, hey, can you play sound check? They're going to check Gordy out. It's like Gordy had vertigo, which was the drummer. So they're checking him out. So I played sound check, and then they come over and says, hey, can you play the show? I'm like, well,
sure.
Of course I can. I said, yes. So I said, I wasn't going to say no. So yeah. So I played the show.
Now that's got to be a moment you get a little nervous.
No, you know what? I wasn't nervous.
Really?
I was on top of the world. That was like, to me, I was nervous that Gordy was sick.
Well, yeah, I can understand.
Because I love Gordy. Gordy is an amazing person and a great drummer and educator.
Well, I can understand you being nervous over that. I think anybody would.
Yeah.
But for you, it's not like you're practicing those songs every day. I mean, I guess you get to watch them every day, but
yeah. It was one of those things where to me, it was pretty natural.
Well, that is your foundation too.
I'm kind of like, I fake it. I just, if I don't know it, I'll fake it. I've seen the show, like you said. I've seen it since, 7 years touring. And, come on, Steve Miller Band. Who doesn't hear every song on the radio?
Right, and who hasn't played them all in cover bands?
He's got some songs that are really different, which are cool.
I'll tell you too. I mean, I was at the show, thanks to you. Thank you very much. And
oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
I listened to the songs that night, and I think there was only 2, maybe 3 songs that I didn't know. I was amazed that I knew every single song he was playing. I mean, I guess that's what a career that spans that long is really like.
You know, when I first started, that was like that with me. I was like, oh, wow, that's one of his songs? Oh, wow. And then like, a couple months later, he'd pull out another song and I'd go, man, I remember that song from, high school. I was like, wow, that's one of his too. The hits just keep coming. And, he's an amazing artist. He still sounds like he's having a blast up there rocking out.
He hit every note. He played every note. I mean, it was very impressive.
And we don't tune down. We're 440.
That's pretty impressive too. I mean, especially as people get up there in age. You've been on the road with him for quite a while. Has technology changed at all? I mean, I know technology's changed. How has technology affected you during this change?
Well, oddly enough, I'm thinking about this right now. I don't think we have any gear on our stage that's real. I mean, we don't have any Kempers. We don't have any Fractal. We don't have any mic modeling. We don't have any amp modeling. We're straight on analog pedals, analog gear. No wireless on the guitars. We have in-ear monitors. That's kind of new technology. And we have a digital monitor console. But out front, you probably went out front. You saw a great big Midas desk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have the big Midas purple dinosaur desk.
I spent my time down at stage left, sir. Well, hey, we do this thing here we call Unsung Heroes, where we give you a chance to recognize somebody who's maybe working behind the scenes that doesn't typically get some light shined on them. Do you have anybody you'd like to shine a little light on?
Well, every production and tour manager, first of all, everybody that takes care of their crew and everybody, they hardly get thanks and stuff like that, but I always have a ride when you need it. There's always, you show up and you take for granted that there's catering and somebody's had to work all that out. So the guys that take care of us, that's important. Another person I would say is definitely the bus drivers. They have your lives in their hands.
Yeah, and those are the ones driving through the night too.
Yeah, thank you guys for your dedication to your craft, to your profession, and for taking it seriously. And the truck drivers for getting the gear there, because without that, we're no show.
Now, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Chris could not be a nicer guy. So please join me in giving him a big thanks for taking the time to share his stories with us. And thank you for taking the time to hang with me here. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. You can do that and find the links to everything mentioned over at jayfranze.com/episode 22. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Jay Franze Show. Make sure you visit us at jayfranze.com. Follow, connect, and say hello. This episode has been brought to you by VR Knives, your source for 100% custom knives made by a true rock star. So, if you're in the market for a new piece of art, reach out to VR Knives. 407-421-5528. 407-421-5528.